and welcome here to TalkFCB, and welcome back to the channel here today, guys, for a full Barca news roundup. And we do have plenty of very interesting topics coming up today. We're going to be exploring the struggles, let's be honest here, of Dani Olmo in this team right now. What is going on with him, and how is it going to improve? We're also going to be talking about Robert Lewandowski's future beyond the end of the season. Interesting reports right now coming out on that. And we've also got the full situation surrounding Lamine Yamal. You know, what exactly is his injury problem right now? How serious is it? And we're also going to be talking about some hilarious words from the Spanish national team. They are furious, and it is so funny. It's all coming up, guys, so come on, and let's do this. But if we do, first of all, begin with a fantastic super thanks here coming in from Jude, who says they've been following the channel for many years, and now my wife is a Barca fan because of your videos and the passion that you present every video in detail about Barca. Even my 3-year-old boy, Jaden, is recognising your voice. I mean, that is incredible. Right the way through the family. Massive shout out to all of you. Thank you for watching. And thank you for the absolutely amazing support. But if we do start here, guys, in today's video with an interesting one, let's talk about Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, because we haven't spoken about him for many months, and it has been quite nice, because obviously back in the summer, things got quite difficult, didn't it, with Ter Stegen? You know, lots went on in the media. Of course, then he got the injury, he got the surgery, it ruled him out for several months of action. I would just say, in the end, it did turn out to be longer than the 3 months that you said, Mark. You know, let's be honest here, you have been out for a significant amount of time. But yeah, Ter Stegen now is moving closer and closer to returning to being fit again. And of course, when he does, there's going to be lots of different questions about his future. Because, of course, Joan Garcia, he is the number one. He has been absolutely phenomenal when fit. You know, we've also had him out injured. We've had to rely recently on Szczesny in goal. But Joan Garcia, he is the number one. He is our future. And he has been outstanding between the sticks. But I want to talk today about a quote from Nagelsmann. This is very recently here with the German national team. He said, we're all happy that Ter Stegen is almost fit now. Hopefully he'll become a starting keeper somewhere soon. In this case, we can continue with our plan as expected, but if not, we will need to rethink our goalkeeper situation. And I thought those were very interesting and very powerful words there from Nagelsmann, the Germany coach, basically saying he needs to become a starter somewhere. He's not saying at Barca, he's saying somewhere. And if he does, you know, we can continue as we are right now. But if he doesn't become that starting goalkeeper again, we're going to have to rethink things ahead of the World Cup. And that is what I've always believed here. The January transfer window, it is going to be absolutely massive when it comes to Ter Stegen. Because what does he want to do? You know, back in the summer, we saw him basically say, I don't really care that you signed Joan Garcia. I don't really care that you're saying I won't be the number one. I'm not leaving. You know, I'm picking up my salary. I am sticking to my contract. I am not leaving the club. Almost as though I don't care about the World Cup. I don't care about my World Cup place. Will that change in January now? Nagelsmann has literally said there, you've got to play. You've got to go somewhere and be the number one. And if you don't, we're not going to have the same plan. We are going to have to change our course of direction. So what is Ter Stegen going to do in January? Will he accept an exit? And again, Barca have to use this to their advantage. You know, they can't just now give in to every Ter Stegen demand. If he decides, oh, I want to go out on loan, you know, we want the best deal now for us. It's in our interest to get the best deal. Back in the summer, we wanted a deal. It didn't happen. Ter Stegen wasn't interested then. So in January, we've got to play our cards right. We have to make sure here that we use this situation to our advantage and do the best thing that we can for the club. But if we do, indeed right here, move on to talk now about Dani Olmo, who has been, throughout the season so far, you know, in general, one of my biggest disappointments of the season. He's somebody here who has so much talent, so much ability. Let's not forget as well, he was a €60 million acquisition. You expect more. You know, you expect him to be one of the leaders in the team. Going forward, you want him to contribute there in terms of goals and assists. You want him to have a real output in the final third. And up until now, he has not performed. You know, he has not done the same as he was doing at the start of last season. He was outstanding outstanding. He was so effective in the team when he first arrived. We have not seen that same hunger, that same cutting edge, that same impact on games. However, what is quite interesting right now, in my opinion, that one of his best performances, and again, the bar is quite low. Olmo has not had too many good performances this season, let's be honest. But I would say one of his better performances came at the weekend against Celta Vigo. And what was interesting about this was he played with Fermin Lopez. Now, they are two very different players there. I believe they can play together. I believe they can function there in the same midfield. It does bring a lot of energy to the team, a lot of attacking output there. Fermin is going to be the most advanced player. He does a lot of great work, doesn't he? Going forward, making those runs, getting shots away, causing chaos, really, in the opposition penalty box. And what that then meant against Celta was that Dani Olmo was a little bit more withdrawn. Now, of course, throughout his time at Barca, we've seen him constantly in that number 10 role, very advanced there, playing at times right behind the centre forward. But in this game, he was a little bit deeper, wasn't he? He was alongside Frenkie de Jong. The two of them there, I thought, worked very well as a combination. I thought Frenkie was brilliant in the game. I thought Dani Olmo certainly helped him at times as well. And it was just interesting to see a sort of different dimension, a different dynamic there in midfield. And I would especially pay attention to that with this question right here. Another super thanks coming in. What is going to happen when Pedri and Frenkie de Jong are out of the next La Liga game against Athletic Club? Because he says right here, I am super worried that if we don't control midfield in this game, it might collapse. It might really go wrong without those two key players. Now, I admit, against Athletic, you don't really want to be without your two pillars in midfield. Frenkie and Pedri have been influential for us this season. But yeah, what are we going to do in that game? And I just look at this sort of deeper role, a little bit deeper for Dani Olmo. Are we going to see him continue there, especially in the absence of Frenkie, of Pedri? I would also look as well, I've got to say, at Marc Bernal. I think this could be a real opportunity, a big chance for him in this team. So far, we've been very patient with him. We've been very slow to reintroduce him, and it's understandable. He was out for such a long time. He's a very young player, not a lot of experience of this kind of thing. So it's the right move from the club to go slowly with his reintroduction. But could this be a moment to start him in this Barcelona team against Athletic Club? Maybe, Olmo and Fermin ahead of him, slightly ahead of him. Maybe you could bring in Marc-Andre there for a bit more cover as well, a bit more solidity. I like the fact that we're at home in that game. We can have the crowd behind us, we hope. It's not like going away to Athletic Club and playing at San Mamés. But I just think it's interesting there. What did you make, guys, of that different kind of role from Olmo? A bit of improvement, a bit of light maybe at the end of the tunnel. And could it be in a slightly reinvented role, especially when you consider the great form of Fermin Lopez this season? However, guys, we do now need to move on to talk about Robert Lewandowski. Of course, the hat-trick hero at the weekend. 3 brilliant goals against Celta Vigo. And I've got to say, I was really happy for Lewandowski because it hasn't been the easiest start to the season for him. And even though he is highly experienced, he's played so many games, so many seasons, I think even for him, it's not been something he's experienced too often. Having a few injury problems, missing extended periods, and also having to really fight and work your way into the starting lineup. And this was a big moment for him, starting against Celta. Ferran, of course, has been deployed there so often this season. So Lewandowski getting that chance, and boy did he take it. And that again is a sign of the maturity of the man, the hunger that he still has, the desire to show what he can do. A hat-trick. It was massive for Barca. It was huge to have somebody there who could score that volume of goals and ultimately get us out of trouble. We still conceded 2 goals against Celta Vigo. We still conceded numerous chances, especially there in the first half with that high line, but we were able to outscore them. And that comes down to Lewandowski's goals in that game, guys. So the big question now, of course, is going to be looking a bit further ahead. His contract expires at Barca at the end of the season. He's got a contract at the club there yet until 2026, which means that at this point, if Barca do not renew him, he is going to be a free agent at the end of the season. Now, the signs right now is, at least on that particular contract, Barca do not plan to extend Robert Lewandowski. And the reports that we're hearing right now throughout this international break that's just started is that if he's not renewed at Barca, if he cannot stay here as a player, he might actually retire. That is what we're hearing in the media here. If he cannot continue at Barca, Lewandowski could walk away from the game. And the reason behind that is he and his wife are so settled in the city. They always dreamt of a move to Barcelona. They had to wait a long time, in Lewandowski's career to make it happen. He finally got here. And ultimately, they want to stay here. They're not interested in huge offers coming in from Saudi or other places there as well. They want to stay in Barcelona. So could Lewandowski really retire at the end of this season? Now, I've got to say, guys, when I heard that report, it did make me sad because, yeah, he's 37 years old. A lot of players will be thinking about retirement at this age. But when you look at him, the kind of striker he is, the kind of player he is, he's still got a lot to give. He could certainly continue at the top level. And my thinking right now is the only reason that I personally wouldn't extend Lewandowski is wages. It's as simple as that right now. He is on a massive contract currently at Barca, one of our highest earning players. That's the only reason why I wouldn't renew him. It wouldn't really be because of footballing ability. Yeah, sure, his powers are waning. You can't continue at the very top forever, at his peak forever, but he's still got a lot to offer. So what I would say right now, instead of retiring, wouldn't he rather stay on a much lower contract? And a lot of people say, well, why would he accept that then? Why is Lewandowski going to accept, a low deal? But he wants to stay in Barcelona. He likes it here. He likes the city. He also loves playing for the club. So why wouldn't he accept a lower deal to continue playing, continue his career, and be where he wants to be? Because I would just say right now, he's got 7 goals in 9 La Liga games. And can you imagine here, we're trying to move on from Lewandowski. You bring somebody new in, you bring in young players here in that number 9 role. Think what they could learn from Lewandowski. He is a player here who could pass on so much wisdom. I'm not saying that he'd have a starting role beyond this season here. I think we do have to look to the future. But that's the other thing about Lewandowski. He's been on the bench. He hasn't been first choice. He's had to battle for his place. Has he complained once? Has he caused a problem? Is he starting to moan and, go to the media? Absolutely not. This guy is a top professional. He takes his work seriously. He's a great person, a great leader to have around the squad. And if we could keep him on a lower deal, on a lower salary than he's currently on, I would be looking at that option. I would be looking to keep hold of that experience. I don't think we're ready yet to ultimately move on completely from Lewandowski. We don't have the goals in the team right now to just cast him aside. He still has something to offer. And yeah, I would be sad, I would be sad genuinely for the game of football to see him walk away altogether from it at the end of the season. But guys, do you agree with that? Because then we do indeed move on to Lamine Yamal. And I do want to talk about this in some detail, guys, because obviously he's had injury problems throughout this season. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty there and a lack of clarity in many ways about the type of injury that Yamal is suffering from. And a lot of people are saying, well, isn't it healed yet? Isn't he recovered? Why are we still being plagued by these injury problems? But right now, Lamine Yamal is suffering with something called pubalgia. Now, that is something that is also known as a sports hernia, and it's a very complicated injury because it's not something there that will just go away overnight. It's not a muscle problem per se, which means that it doesn't just heal and get better. It's more about managing it because it is a type of injury that causes a lot of pain. It can cause discomfort even during matches there. You can see at times Yamal sort of grabbing his leg, in a bit of pain. And what is also interesting about this is that it's not the first time we've been associated really with this injury because Messi himself suffered from it. He spoke openly about it back in 2019, about how it was limiting him in some ways in terms of his training, in terms of matches as well, in terms of how he wanted to play. And he basically spoke about how it's a really complicated injury and it needs attention. And so that is why right here, Barca are taking this very seriously. They've actually brought in a Belgian specialist now over the past few days to have a good look at Lamine Yamal, to sort of understand the injury, to have a real good look at what is going on there. And following basically that examination, the report came out that ultimately Barca had caught it very early, which is vital. For this kind of discomfort, this kind of problem, it's very important to catch it early there and to basically treat it with a lot of physiotherapy, with a lot of rehab there. And Barca's medical team have been very attentive to this situation. And following the report that was made there by the Belgian specialist who came in, Barca are quite satisfied with how Lamine is progressing there. They have to keep a watchful eye on it, they have to manage it, but they are quite satisfied. But of course, because he had to sort of go under this examination, he is now out of the Spanish squad. That is very, very key here, that Barca put him under that examination. He has now not been able to join up with the Spanish national team. And what I find incredible here is the irony, is the hypocrisy from the Spanish national team. Just have a listen here to some of what they had to say today, which, by the way, is absolute nonsense. Because the first thing that Spain did was release a statement there from the Spanish national team before we heard from Luis de la Fuente. They basically said the medical services of the RFEF wish to express their surprise and their discomfort after learning that on Monday, the day of the start of the official training camp with the national team, that Yamal had undergone an invasive radiofrequency procedure for the treatment of his discomfort in the pubis that same morning. They went on to say that this procedure was carried out without prior communication to the medical staff of the national team, with knowledge of the details only through a report received at 10:40 last night, which indicated the medical recommendation of rest for 7 to 10 days. They say that given this situation and prioritising at all times the health, safety and the well-being of the player, the RFEF has made the decision to release the player from the current camp. We are confident that he will recover well, and we wish him a full and speedy recovery. Spain are fuming, and it is incredibly ironic there that they are talking about a procedure being done without consulting us. Oh, Barca didn't tell us. Barca didn't inform us here. Oh, it's funny that, isn't it? I recall us having that problem with you. You were the ones who gave us that idea about doing things without informing you. I just thought that's the way that it was. I didn't think we needed to communicate with each other because you didn't do it with us. And this is the problem here. Spain now, they can't start crying about this. They can't start crying about the fact that we're putting our player and his health and his recovery first. At the end of the day, he is our player. We pay his wages. He is our responsibility. We will do the absolute best that we need to for his fitness and his health. And we have done that here. Barca have taken it upon themselves to take action. And I love this, because then we move on to Luis de la Fuente. Now, his words are even more ironic. He said today, "I'm shocked. I've never been through a situation like this before, and I don't think it's normal at all. Everybody's surprised. You don't know anything. No news reaches you. You don't know any details, and then they suddenly tell you. Oh, Luis de la Fuente, my heart breaks for you. Oh, I feel so sorry for you, my friend. Is there anything I can do? Can I get you a tissue, maybe? Or I know, how about just have some painkillers? Why don't you do that? Just have some painkillers before a match. Why not? You know, you give it out to the players. You can do anything that you like. But all I'll say about this is Spain are basically qualified anyway. Why are they making such a fuss? Why are they creating so much noise here about this situation? Surely you don't need Yamal when you're basically qualified there. 2 meaningless games yet again. Barca have done the right thing. You know, I don't care what people are going to say here about the Spanish national team, their words, you know, oh, many people like to jump on Barca. Barca are always in the wrong, but I don't care. We need to put Yamal first. We need to put his fitness, his recovery first. This is a complicated injury. It is not an ideal situation. He needs rest. He doesn't want to play non-stop games. He needs a period of rest. Luis de la Fuente, shut up. You've made your bed. Please go ahead and lie in it. Do not talk about us and do not talk to us again. Thank you and goodbye. So indeed, guys, that is the Barca News Roundup. That is what we have in store today. Please do let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on the Yamal situation. That injury is a bit worrying. What do you think there about Spain's words, their reactions to all of that? You know, incredibly ironic in my opinion. And what do you make of everything else that we have discussed in today's video? Guys, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you indeed for the fantastic support. I will catch you soon, but until next time, as always, Vashka El Barça.